Hello, boys and girls. It's story time again, and I've decided to go back to the Christopher Church Mouse Treasurer. So we're going to read about him today, and it's called the Tattletale Tongue. Do you know what the tongue is? Sometimes it gets us in trouble, doesn't it? And our Bible verse is, if your brother sins, go and reprove him in private. Matthew 18:15. Tilly teacher stood on the steps of the schoolhouse and rang the bell to call all the mice children into school. They trooped in noisily, carrying books and lunch buckets, laughing and talking together. Soon they were settled at their desk as Miss Tilly called their names. Mandy Mouse, said Miss Tilly. Here, said Mandy. Freddie Field Mouse, continued Miss Tilly. Here, answered Freddie. Said Church Mouse, said Miss Tilly. There was no answer. Miss Tilly looked up in surprise. As Freddie explained, Said and Ted aren't here, Miss Tilly. Why, that's unusual, said Miss Tilly. I've never known those mice boys to miss school. I wonder... Just then the door bursted open and Said and Ted ran in, dropping their books and homework papers. Good morning, Miss Tilly, Ted gasped, scrambling on the floor to pick up the mess. I'm sorry we're late, but we had a problem at home, explained Said, helping Ted pick up some books. Well, sometimes things do happen, Miss Tilly said. I hope it wasn't a serious problem. Well, I guess it is serious. You see, my mother's gold pen has been lost and she's awfully upset. Ever since we got up this morning, we've been looking for it. Oh my, explained Miss Tilly. I'm sure Aunt Snooty is very sad. I know how much that pen meant to her. I believe her father got it from a very wealthy home where he lived. What do you think has happened to it, boys? Said and Ted looked very ashamed as Ted answered in a low voice. She thinks it was stolen by one of the young mice. Stolen? Well, I'm sure none of our mice would have done such a thing, Miss Tilly thought a moment, then said, and just to prove it, we're going to clean this classroom. I want all of you to search your desks, put everything out on top so that I may see. They need a good cleaning anyway. I'll clean my desk too. Soon there was lots of talking in the room. Hey, look what I found, said Freddie Field Mouse. Last week's homework assignment. I thought I lost it. He waved a bent piece of paper. Oh, yuck, groaned Christopher Church Mouse in disgust, pulling out a moldy, half-eaten sandwich from his desk. Look at this. Chris, nice lunch you've got there, smirked one of the mice boys. Have a bite, Christopher laughed, waving it towards the boys' nose. I found my book I lost last month, said Mandy Mouse. The mice cleaned and searched for the pen nearly all day. At last it was time to go home. Phew, said Freddie Field Mouse to Christopher. That was some day. I'm exhausted. Me too, said Christopher. Then he laughed and wiped off a big smudge on Freddie's face. It looks like you've been wearing half the dust home, Freddie. When Christopher got home, Mama had his favorite cookies waiting. He sat down and told her all about his day. Well, that's too bad, said Mum sympathetically, sitting down at the table with Christopher. I was with Aunt Snooty this afternoon, trying to help her to think of all the places she could have left that pen. Well, I think it's terrible, fussed Christopher, taking a big bite of his second cookie. What's terrible, Christopher? The way Aunt Snooty accused of all us mice of stealing her pen. Who would want her old pen anyway? I'll bet it's not even gold. Christopher, said Mama, it's very important to Aunt Snooty, whatever it's made of. Yes, Mama. That evening, Christopher went to Said's house to play. They were all upstairs playing checkers when Uncle Rudy called. Said, coming, said called back. He looked at Christopher. I'll be right back, but don't you cheat while I'm gone. I won't, laughed Christopher. He watched Sid run down the stairs. Then he looked around the room. Maybe I could look for Aunt Snooty's pen here while I'm waiting. He walked over to Sid's desk. There's nothing wrong with poking around to see what I can find. He looked over his shoulder to make sure Sid wasn't coming back yet, then turned over a couple of papers that were on his desk. What? That was Aunt Snooty's pen. Christopher picked it up and then dropped it as if it was a hot coal. Didn't Sid know that the pen was there? He must know. Oh my, Christopher thought. Sid must have stolen his own mother's pen. He usually needs a pen. He's always losing his. Suddenly he heard Sid starting up the stairs. Christopher put papers over the pen and sat down before the checkerboard. Did you cheat? Asked Sid. I told you I wouldn't, answered Christopher, giving Sid a long, hard look. Could Sid actually steal something from his own mother? The next day, Christopher was walking to school with his friend, Freddie Fieldmouse. I sure hope today's a better day than yesterday, said Freddie. It will be. We won't have to look for that old pen again, said Christopher. He continued softly, Freddie, I've got a secret to tell you, but you've got to promise not to tell anybody. I promise. I could get in big trouble if you tell. Giving a look in both directions to be sure that no one was listening, Christopher whispered into Freddie's ear. What? Shrieked Freddie. Shh, hissed Christopher with alarm. Someone will hear and wonder what we're talking about. Are you sure he stole it? Well, I saw it right on his desk. At recess that day, Christopher and a couple of other friends were playing together when Mandy Mouse came over to join them. She was carrying a small bag of candy. What do you have there, Mandy? Christopher asked with interest. Some candy, mumbled Mandy, with her mouth full of delicious stuff. May I have a piece, please? Begged Christopher. I'll only have 2 more, Mandy said reluctantly. I'll tell you a secret if you give me a piece, promised Christopher. Is it a good secret? Oh, yes. I know who stole Aunt Snooty's pen. Mandy's eyes grew big and round, and she handed Christopher a piece of candy as she listened. Whoever would have thought of that, she explained. Think what? Questioned a cute little mouse coming up behind Mandy. Oh, can't tell you, said Mandy. It's a secret. See that you don't, warned Christopher as he joined the mice men again. The next day at school, the little mice were in an uproar. It seemed like all the mice knew Sid had stole his mother's pen and were standing around talking about it. Whenever Sid came around, they stopped. At lunchtime, Sid went home and didn't come back. Several of the mice children in the yard began to tease his brother Ted. Hey, Ted, where's your big brother? Gone out to steal something else? You all be quiet, screamed Ted. My brother's not a thief. Christopher and Freddie watched Ted out the window. I'm sorry for him, Chris, said Freddie sadly. Yes, I am too, agreed Christopher. It must be really hard when your own brother does something like that. That evening, Christopher was doing his homework when Aunt Snooty bustled in to see Mum. I just wanted to let you know that I found my gold pen, said Aunt Snooty with excitement. Why, that's wonderful, said Mama. Wherever did you find it? Well, I remembered I was helping Sid with his homework in his room. I looked, and there it was under some papers on his desk, just where I had left it. I'm sorry if I caused you any trouble, gushed Aunt Snooty on her way out the door. You know my father gave it to me. Christopher sat frozen in horror as he watched Aunt Snooty leave. Aunt Snooty has found her pen, Christopher, said Papa. Did you hear her? Yes, I heard, said Christopher with a sad tone. Isn't that wonderful? Enthused Mum. Yes, it's really wonderful, mumbled Christopher in a flat voice. he trudged to his room. The whole school would know tomorrow. He had misjudged his cousin and told the mice that Sid was a thief. Christopher laid his head down on his desk and began to cry. "Why, son, is your homework that hard?" said Papa from the doorway. Christopher jumped as he heard his voice. "No," he sobbed. "Oh, Papa, I've done a terribly bad thing," and he explained it all to him. Just then a knock came at the door. Papa went to answer it. Christopher peeked from his room. "Good evening, Uncle Rudy. Won't you come in? What can I do for you?" "I'm not sure," said Uncle Tooty in a very stern voice. "My boys tell me that Christopher has been spreading lies in school that Sid is a thief. I understand that Sid was so hurt and embarrassed that he couldn't even go back to school after lunch." "Yes, Chris was just telling me what happened. May I say how sorry I am? I will make sure that Christopher makes it right at school." "Very well," said Uncle Rudy as he left, shaking Papa's paw. When the door closed, Papa motioned Christopher into the living room. "But Papa, I didn't tell the whole school. I just told Freddie and Mandy. I told them not to tell." "Sit down beside me and let's talk," said Papa, patting the sofa beside him. "Do you remember the verse the children's Sunday school teacher was teaching the other day about the tongue?" "I guess I don't," admitted Christopher. "She said the Bible says in James 3:5, the tongue is a small part of our body, but it makes great boasts." "Our tongues are small," said Christopher, trying to stick his out far enough to see it. "Yes, that's right," agreed Papa. "The tongue is small, but the verse says it makes great boasts. This means it can cause a lot of hurt and pain. I think we've seen tonight just how much harm it can cause, haven't we?" Christopher looked at Papa with big, tearful eyes and nodded his head. "Oh, yes, Papa, I am so sorry." Papa wiped a tear from Christopher's cheek and said, "If you can't say something nice about someone, we probably shouldn't say anything at all. The Bible also says that when we have a problem with someone, we should go right to them first about it. If you had gone to Sid and asked him about the pen, this would never have happened." "I know, Papa," said the sad little mouse. "Chris, let's go to Sid's house tonight so you can ask for his forgiveness. Then tomorrow you must go to school and tell the whole class what you have done and how sorry you are. That is the only way to make it right." "Oh, Papa, that will be very hard," said Christopher. "I know it will be, son, but that is using your tongue the right way." And Christopher learned that night how to use his tongue. It was a lesson he would never forget. And I hope that you remember too, watch what you say next time about someone. Thanks for listening.